Hello, I'm Robbie Fowler and you're watching Redmen TV.
Your team playing 4-3-3, which obviously we've seen, and some of the younger youth teams when you were there were still playing 4-2-3-1. You feel that 4-3-3 provides more of a dominating midfield than a 4-2-3-1. Could you explain why? What's the professional view on that in the midfield area?
Well, if you talk about in terms of your 1 and a 2 and a 2 and a 1, right? Normally you'll play with this guy here who's really dominant with the ball.
Is this the home?
That's the control.
Facing backwards.
Yeah, facing backwards. So we're kicking that way.
Yeah.
So this guy here dictates the rhythm of your game, the tempo of your game, right? These two here are players, they then have to have the capacity to control, but also run and get forward and get back in. So if they don't have that, it's very difficult for it to function, you know. So this guy here is the controller, dictates, dominates, commands the game from behind. These guys here can join in, but then as the team moves up the pitch, they have to be able to move with it. But I also have a rule: don't run forward if you can't run back. So they have to have then that capacity to play in that corridor where they get back in again. If they can't do that, it becomes difficult then. And then that's what you would then maybe switch to a 2 and a 1. Because if they can't do that, if you play a 2 and a 1, then those movements are more side to side. Side to side, control them from behind. And then this guy then is more the one joining in with maybe one of these just half round the corner a bit. But really, when you play the 2 and the 1, these are more that way. You play the 1 and the 2, they're that, but they go together. And if you haven't got those profiles of players, it's difficult to play that.
So on Sunday, did you make, I honestly wouldn't know whether you made that switch and went from a 1-2 to a 2-1, because that seemed to be a problem for us with Diaby.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt that I thought in the first, when we played Manchester City, I thought we were tactically very good in the game. Yeah. We played a 1 and a 2, our concentration was good. We could control the space with Nasri, with Joe Allen here, and then with Stephen and obviously it ended up being John Joe Shelby. They could control their 2, you know, and then we had that sort of capacity physically to do that. You know, Stephen was rested, didn't play on the Thursday, played on the Sunday. We then, obviously, as you say, we started with that there again against Arsenal, but I thought that we couldn't dominate so much. We had Diaby, who then was, as I said, his running ability to get beyond was causing us a problem. And then the big thing, we weren't together. So Joe knows exactly how I work, and you can see him early on. He's a Liverpool player.
Yeah, definitely.
But he's just domination of the game and the ball, and he's not even in his best position. When you see him further on one, he's got another 50%. But because he knows how I work, I have to play him there so he can dominate the ball. But he's got a lot more to come. So if I get Lucas in that role and can push Joe in there, you'll see a different player again as well, because he's so dynamic. But then what was happening was we weren't together. Nuri Sahin's coming in, not quite up to the speed, the tempo yet. So he's not as dynamic yet as
really leggy, didn't he?
Absolutely. So if you've got him not quite on it yet, and you've got Stephen who's trying to do his bit and get forward, all of a sudden the 3 became 1. Okay, now the spaces are starting to scare me. Because then they were breaking.
They were exploiting that.
Absolutely. So second half, right, we now need to control them. Now need to stick 2 controllers in and then try and prevent the counter-attack also, and then slide side to side. You know, the goal was disappointing. See the first goal? If you look at it from a tactical perspective, we build the game perfect. Joe Allen drops in. He gets turned. He makes the ball. So you've broken 4 players with 1 pass. We're high up the pitch. Right back's on the ball. Great. But because we're not a team yet that's got good patience in the top end of the field, because when that pass is played and Glenn Johnson receives it in the right back position, we have to move as a back line to condense the space. And this is what I was talking about after the game. Our patience at the top end of the field is not good yet. We gave it away so much. So what then happens is psychologically with the defender, once Johnson plays the ball inside and we give it away, they stay. And then you look at the gap then. The gap between when we lost the ball to one pass through into here. Absolutely. Now, I would rather see those little errors and improve them as we go, rather than, right, everyone get up and then we'll smash the ball up the pitch, play percentage football, play fighting football, and then you never abandon the game. And then as supporters, manager, players, you suffer. You suffer in the end. So this is the little bit of pain that we go through in terms of, like what I said with the Swansea one, in a different way, but finding the balance, finding, you know, and again, it might even be an interim system, because now of the players that I might need to come up with something now that between now and January allows us to still play with the style, to have a greater threat up front, but to make sure that we're compact at the same time.
I think I can speak for all Liverpool fans saying we don't want to ever see any type of long ball football except really in an extreme emergency. But at Swansea, how did you cope with teams pushing on so much? Because that's another fact that we've seen in the first couple of games. And they're just right in our faces.
Yeah.
How did you combat that at Swansea?
Well, so then tactically what we then had was, so everyone set up, so teams were frightened to death of letting us get a rhythm in the game. So they would push right on to our back four. So I then had Michel Vorm, we're brilliant. Just take them out of the game. And it's not a long ball, it's a pass. So we were then just dropping it in, over onto the striker, or over onto the side. And now we've taken all of them out of the game, dropped it over, we turned, and now it's 4v4. And then they're unsure then. So now they don't want to be exposed to that, so then they start to drop off. And then you can build your game. But you have to have so much courage. And that's the point. You know, it's maybe a different way of playing for people. But they can play, and they should be able to. That's why they're Liverpool. If you can't play football and you're Liverpool, you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. So, and I don't want to expose players, because that's not what I'm about. You've got to play to people's strengths. But ultimately, this is how I work, you know, and it's something that we will work, and it'll work well here for us. And then it'll be an education that hopefully then will put us in place for the next number of years going forward. But this is the ugly bit of it. This is the dirty work, as you call it.
Thanks very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
That was a joint question.
Both tacticians.
Following from that there, how much of a blow was the injury to Lucas, and what's the latest on developments there with his fitness?
Yeah, it was bitterly disappointing, because I've got to say he's been one of the players that's come in, and he was really excited about this way of working. He understands totally the ideas of what I'm trying to implement. So for him, this was going to even showcase his qualities even more. He'd worked his way through pre-season, was absolutely brilliant, and then he's gone over done all the hard miles and the hard graft, got himself fit or nearly fit, and then all of a sudden he pulls his rec fem up here. So it was a big blow, because he's one of the disciples, I would say. He understands totally what we're doing. He's been loving the work by all accounts, and so to lose someone of that respect within the group as well is obviously difficult. How's he doing at the moment? We've obviously kept in contact. He's been at home for a bit because he can't do a great deal. We've had people going around and giving him that little bit of work. He has good and bad days, to be honest, because he's had a long time out. He's worked hard to come back, and now he's out again. But the idea really for him, like I said to him, what I'll do, we'll keep his spirits up. I'm going to use him to also go out and look at some games for me, because he's tactically very good. He's someone that I will get to go with my analyst and look at some games to make sure that tactically he still stays in the game, because that's important. You know, you give you 3 months out, you think, you know. But for me, it's about now becoming back a better player, and rather than being in the first position, you know, it's like sometimes on whatever you do, sometimes when you take a stand back and you look at it from a different position, you pick up things that you maybe not picked up before. So I know that he never even thought about that, and when I put that idea to him, he thought that was good. So so I'll get him out so that he's tactically still participating in the game. He can work on other areas because his strength. We now know his knee is strong, and he can keep working on that. And then hopefully when we get him back, he'll have benefited from all the work and come back a better player again.
Having his time off after the defeat, he seemed a very busy person. You want to get on with things. Is it having this lull and not having to play about the frustration?
Yeah, a wee bit of both, really. A bit of both. Anytime you lose a game, you can't wait for the next game. But also at the same time, it gives you that wee bit of reflection time. And because obviously the last numbers of weeks, and in particular last week, was a real crescendo to that, wasn't there? And then the window finished. And so I think for us it's maybe come at a good time. Like as I said, I've been able to. There's only been a small group of players here, and then what has allowed me to do this week is really throw myself into the young players. So they've all been up here this week. We had a little game this morning where I get the chance to really look at them closely. I'm obviously at the development games, and looking forward to seeing the young players at all ages come through. But I think in time, in terms of reflection, it's given us a time to look and analyse and just really refocus, really get ourselves together, and then we'll be able to push on then.
Going back to the transfer window, would you like to see the transfer window stopped before the season starts, or is having that little extra couple of weeks a bit of a benefit for yourself? You can find out in real games who the players you want and who the players you don't want. Yeah.
For me, it's I've always been the advocate of, as soon as the season starts, then it should finish. It should finish. And for me, there's a moral issue in it as well. For me, there's a moral issue. Your season starts and you've maybe still got a couple of weeks to run through to the end of August. You've got players in your changing room who maybe don't want to be there, but you're fighting for your life and for points, you know, for your club, for your supporters, for your city. And you've maybe got some players who actually don't want to be here, but you have to involve them and you have to have them around because they're a part of your group, you know. And that's the bit morally that's wrong for me. So I think there's every way. I think that for clubs, it's not good in terms of managers getting your squad together. And I also think as well, there's the moral aspect, you know. And it's only then, whether you do good business or bad business, it's only after the whole thing shuts that there's a bit of peace, and then you can get on with doing your work. And then you know then that at least everyone then, the door's shut, boom, off we go. Get the boat, set sail again, and then at least you know that everyone for the next number of months is on the boat and not looking to jump off it.
Going back to the tactical and philosophy elements.
I tell you what, I'm impressed with this, you know. I could sit and talk about it all day here with you. Yeah, it's brilliant.
You touched on.
You answered a lot of questions from the other guys, but just following on then from what you mentioned there about Suarez, and obviously you see him as playing through the middle, obviously he drops off, I mean, somewhat like Messi, where he's in a false position. Would you ever look to play him out like he played in the league game? Obviously not so far you haven't, but that's where he played at Ajax, and where, you know, someone might ponder whether he can be more effective coming from a deeper position to create for Brady through the middle, for instance.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. Those sort of, that little one and a narrow two gives you that possibility. Because I think he's so clever. You know, if I think about me managing against him last year, he was one of the players I thought, you need to be careful of this little bugger. You know, because in round the box he rolls you, he's clever, he's looking for the clever piece of play, you know, he's so bright, he's persistent. So his strengths for me are in and around the box. You know, he can drop in and become free, become loose, and plays it loose forward. But he hasn't got that exhilarating pace that I say a Messi. You know, Messi drops in, he gets turned in, and he's driving at you, and he's, you know, Lewis is one he can, you know, we try to encourage him to get around Mertesacker, you know, and just play freely in front of him and then exploit the space just in front of the box. And when he does that, he's clever. You have him too much out there, you know. So I think in that one there he can do that. He can play as a false winger and be on the inside. And it's certainly something that we can look at.
Just following on from that then also, you know, said about with regards to the Arsenal game where sometimes we're not patient enough in the final third. Do you think that's something that certain players like Luis maybe for instance, sometimes they're a little bit too quick to try and play the wrong sort of pass, whereas sometimes he needs to be a bit more patient and hold it up?
Yeah, and that was the point I said at half time in terms of, you know, take two, but it's also again the profile, the certain types, you know. I think it's, you know, if you've played that game where you've been sat waiting and then when the ball comes up you're playing quick counter-attacking football, that is the way that you'll play that. So this just takes time. These are guys that are wonderful technicians, they're good players, and sometimes you have a bad day. You have a bad day where you give the ball away. You know, some players you're watching a game and they'll give it away more in one game than what you've maybe seen in 3 or 4 games. So but I think the point for me is that we build the game quite well now through our thirds. You know, Joe Allen, one of the most courageous players I've seen. He'll take the ball in any situation and use his body well and get himself out. And we get ourselves through that midfield area quite well. The top end of the field, you have to have more patience. Because the more patience you have, if you can't penetrate, because you can't score every time you attack. And that's just what we're trying to feed into the players. Every time you cross the halfway line, you're not going to score on your first attempt. So test the organisation. Teams are well organised now. So you have to test their organisation. Move the game, move the ball, get them tired, keep them running. The worst thing for a football player in the game is to be embarrassed without the ball. And then once you keep moving them side to side in order to penetrate, someone loses the concentration. You know, boom. We had it last year a number of times. Man City scored late on. We kept working them, trying to find a way in, come out, come in, boom. And then eventually that comes. At the minute, when we get, because we're so anxious to score, we try to do it straight away, and then we concede possession. So for me, the best thing other than scoring goals in the game is having the ball. And then, you know, I think back I think back to Liverpool. Remember before the goalkeepers could play with their feet and they could pick the ball up? Liverpool used to go 1 and 2-0 up. And I used to, from the halfway line, boom, back to the keeper, he would just pick it up. Game over. That was it. And boom. And just keep the ball, they would go up and then they would kick it back and they'd pick it up again. Boring. It's tactical. It's the same idea nowadays. But you have to get that understanding that is the way you can do it. So for me, Pepe is that type, but he can use his feet. So it's not, for us, when we have the ball, it should be 11 versus 10. So with Michel Vorm last year, I lost my goalkeeper. I had a whole raft of goalkeepers that was given to me. I couldn't get one that was comfortable with his feet. And then everyone says, Michel Vorm, he's not big enough for the Premier League. He's only 6'1". For me, it was perfect. He was quick, he was agile, and he could play football. And it meant that when we had the ball, my team had 11 men against the 10. And when you've got the ball 65–70% of the time, it's a football death for the other team. Well, we're not at that stage yet, but that's what we will get to. It's death by football. You just suck the life out of it. Do you know that one we had where people stop going? Do you know the one where you get your LA football in? No. I had a wee bit of a deja vu. See you at the game against Arsenal. Do you know at the end of the game when they were tiki-taka? we were doing that to them last year. So this is the dirty, hard bit for me. I'm starting to think, okay, you know, but we'll get to that stage. And it's death by football. You just keep them running, and then they stop going. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Dan, do you want to finish off, mate?
I just want to say, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to be here. It's actually been a real privilege. I've got a slightly different question to what's been asked so far, is that we should suppose a lot of things about you, right, from what we know, what we can read about you. But I was just interested from your perspective, when you come in, what information do you demand from everybody else around you in the club in order to be able, for you to be able to manage the way you want? Just give us an overview of that kind of information you want from everybody else.
There's two things, it's twofold. The first thing, that is the biggest pressure for me in football. The pressure's not the game. The pressure is, for me, whenever people don't know you. When I'm stood on the side of a field, or I'm seen in the press, or I'm seen sat here on a press day, people make a judgment on you as a person, on you and your life. For me, that's the pressure of football. That's our life. There's no pressure there. There's a responsibility I carry for the city, for the supporters, everything. But that is the only thing that's the not so nice side. People make an opinion on you when they actually don't know you. What I demand when I come into here, I promise three things. That my communication is open. So my door is open for you. If it's football or social life, you come and speak to me. But I will tell you how I feel. I'm not going to waste 6 months to tell you something that I know now. So my communication is open. The second point I'll promise you is quality. I'm in here at 7:30 in the morning and I leave between 7 and 8 at night. I'll give my life to the club to make it the very best I can and provide quality in my work. I spent years studying, doing all the dirty work, being away from my family, travel, spending money, having no money, to invest for my future going forward. So I will provide quality in my work. The third thing I will promise you is ambition. I've arrived at 39 years of age at one of the best clubs in the world because I want to succeed. And I'm ambitious and, without being arrogant, I'm good at what I do. But those three things I can promise. If you need someone who's played 1,000 times for Liverpool, or who's won 900 medals, or you've got the wrong man. You've got the wrong man. But those three things I can promise you in my lifetime here. All I ask you is to work well and respect. It doesn't matter where you sit in the chain organisationally. It doesn't matter where you sit. If you're the groundsman or you're my assistant manager, for me, you're a person. And I will treat you as a human being. So just do your best. I give you the permission to be yourself, no one else. And if you do your best, that is all I will ask. Sometimes your best isn't good enough. But as long as you give your best, that is the most important element for me. And when I came in here my first day, I had every staff member you could have. The ground staff said it was the first time they've ever been in a meeting for years. For me, these are part of what makes us. When we have success, when I drive in through the gates, the guy in the security is a part of that success. Not just the players on the field. We will all feel a part of the success because of the one club. Okay. Pleasure. Thank you very much.